This is the plaintiff, Richie. He says he was in a terrible relationship and had to get the heck out of Dodge ASAP, so he rented a room in the defendant's house, and he was an ideal roommate. The defendant, however, had a lot of rules. He was like the Gestapo, who said if he didn't follow the rules, he'd be out. Sure enough, the guy ended up kicking him out a few months later, got a restraining order against him, and still owes him money for rented security. He was like a Boy Scout when he lived in that room. Doesn't understand what all the fuss is about, and wants the $1,050.82 he's owed. This is the defendant, Mark Donovan. He says the plaintiff has a mouth like a dirty sailor. He swore in front of his 10-year-old daughter on more than one occasion, and he told the guy it wasn't going to work out, that he had to leave. The plaintiff started threatening him, told him he was going to punch him in the face, and also said he was going to smash all his windows. Luckily, a judge issued a restraining order against the plaintiff because he realized the nutcase was a maniac. And well, here they are. He's accused of kicking a guy to the curb. The defendant has filed a countersuit for $5,000 for additional security owed and emotional distress and extortion.
All parties, please raise your right hands. Be seated. Come to order, please. Litigants have been sworn, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you, Douglas. Richie, you've asked us to refer to you only by your first name. You're suing Mark Donovan for $1,050.82. You say he owes you in lost wages, security deposit, and rent rebate. You are counterclaiming against him $5,000 for the portion of the security deposit you regret paying him back and emotional distress. What's going on, gentlemen?
Like the opening had said, I made a quick, bad reaction decision. I needed a new residence ASAP. And,
how come?
Over a failed relationship.
Okay.
I had to get out of Dodge quick, as the pitch had said.
Was there something criminal there, or?
Nothing criminal. There had been, in the past, a domestic case between her and I, but we had already resided together again and were amicably living together again. As it comes to find out, it wasn't going to work out, so I moved on.
Okay.
Made a rash, quick decision and accepted residency at Mark's place. It was all well and good. I have really nothing.
How did you find his place?
Red flag, Craigslist, bad news altogether. So this was I would say around the 4th or 5th of November. I moved in Friday, the 8th of November. And I understand it's his, every man has his castle, it's his castle. There's rules and regs. I totally, empathize with that big time. But it was a little bit too overbearing.
Like what?
The man worked hard, he installed his own hardwood floors. There was just, couldn't put on shoes or boots, which I understand. But then it got too overbearing. I mean, for example, one morning, I'd be sitting by the front with my boots on. A man was picking me up to go to work. I'd be ready and out the door for him. So Mark gets up. I thought he was just starting his truck out front. But he turned on every light, TV, whatever. And then when I went to leave for work, when my ride pulled up, his van was gone. So I'm like, what do I do? Didn't have time to take off the boots to go shut down the house, the power. I don't want to complain about a power bill on my behalf. So I stepped on the floor with the boots, shut off the TV, the lights, heat, whatever had to be shut down. And then at the end of the day, of course, there was a boot print on the floor, and I got a ration about it, and that was a very firm and bold first warning. So things went on, and then it happened. And then I definitely, without a doubt, my fault, irresponsible, used the F-bomb in front of his sweet 10-year-old daughter, who was great.
You can't control yourself?
No, apparently not. That is a defect of character that I am addressing and working on. It's awful, and it's my fault. I will never deny that.
Okay.
It happened on a second occasion twice.
You actually, what you say in your complaint, which I love, and I think it's so funny. What was it now? You know what I'm looking at, right?
I believe so.
Then I accidentally said it again. I'm Irish. It's the first word you learn. Okay. I have a lot of Irish friends who may not necessarily like that. All right, so go ahead.
Maybe my neck of the woods, that's all. I apologize, and Mark approached me on it, and enough said about it. Carry on.
But apparently it wasn't enough said because it happened again.
And again.
And then he asked you to leave.
And then I'd swore, and then it was the 4th of January, and Mark had said it's not going to work out. Maybe you shouldn't be around when she's visiting. You didn't have
a lease, right? This is
this is tenant at will. I have a
and
copy
a month
of
to
that.
month?
Month to month tenant.
You would pay once a month.
I had moved in, gave him on the 8th, so it was 1 week gone. We made a ratio of what I owed for the first month.
You prorated, and then after that,
and then I gave him $650 in full for the last month's, whenever that would have come up, the last month's rent.
Okay.
And so that was said. And then the following Saturday, on the 11th of January, was kind of the final straw with the floor again. Mark had been out, and when I had come home, he had been in and already back out and left me the final note. No, you definitely got to go now. There's footprints all over my floor, blah, blah, blah. And then when he came home, I showed him the slippers. It was dust off the back porch. I haven't cleaned the floor yet. There was no surface scratches or damage to the floor.
Okay.
So I said, fine. So I cleaned the floor, blah, blah, blah. Then you got to go, no problem. And with that being said, we spoke amicably and had words. Well, with the last month's rent, you paid till March, you can stay till March, no problem.
Meaning the end of March?
No, the end of February. For March 1st, I was to be gone because I was paid. The month of February was paid. That would have been my last month's. And
Right,
January
but-
was paid in full.
January was paid in full, but you didn't pay again in February?
Correct.
Okay, so that last month that you had paid would have counted for all of February?
For all of February, correct.
All right, and so, but in January, he's telling you it's the last straw?
Yes, but he
And
gave
he tells
me...
you that, but then you find another, or you ask him, if I get out by February 1st, will you give me back my month?
And he said, hands down, yes, not a problem, no worries.
All right, so you leave on February, when do you leave?
I left on January 25th, the Saturday.
Where did you end up going?
I went to my current address now.
Which is, is it another apartment?
It is another similar situation, a individual that owns a home.
A roommate,
I rent
okay.
the second floor or a room. And
How's that
coexist.
working out?
Excellent. Couldn't have
Okay.
made a better move. I wish that was the move I made initially.
So you were suing, on the day you left, he gave you $325, half of the month.
Yes, if I could just...
Tell me
bring
what
him
he said when he did that.
Okay. Thing was, he swore to me that I needed this money for first and last to move into the new place. And where he said he would give me, and I gave him a week's notice, a day's notice, and called him that afternoon saying it's Saturday, make sure you make it to the bank. And he said, up until that point, yes, I got you covered, no problem. So I didn't have a car at the time. He was like, give you a lift up the street. Gave me a lift up the street, and parting ways out of his van, he chumped me off with a check for half. I'm like, I can't show up to this poor woman. She's gonna tell me to turn around and take all my stuff and leave. I'm gonna have to put it on the front lawn. Like,
Why did you pay him only half of the month back?
Richie had told me that he had found a new place to go about the last week of January, and we had spoke of it. I told him, you're paid up till March 1st. You can stay till March 1st. He said, if I move out, will you give me the money back? I say, I'll give you the money back if I'm able to rent the place out. I said, you have up until March 1st. You're paid till then. And a little bit later on, he basically told me, he said, I'll stay here as long as I like. You can't kick me out. I know the way it works in the state of Massachusetts, and I need that money to move into my new place. And I barely had much work. I says, I really don't even have $650 to give you. And he said, well, I'll stay here as long as you like, as long as I like. You can never get me. It'll take me months to get me out of the place.
Did that conversation happen?
not a hope.
All right, so let me hear from you. What was the problem?
Basically, the second time that my daughter was over for visitation, Rich let the F-bomb fly. I pulled him aside and
What
said...
was he? Well, how did it even happen?
Matter of fact, Rich seemed to have some sort of, for lack of better expression, personality disorder. Always complaining, always swearing about people, referred to every person as a drunk, a cokehead. Every woman he referred to in extreme derogatory terms, which I won't even mention. And every time I was talking to him, F-bomb flying, and I pulled him aside, said, geez, you know, my daughter's over, Rich. If you're going to be complaining like that, go to your room. Sure enough,
Go to your room.
Yeah, I asked him. I says, you know, if
I
you
don't
can't
blame
be,
you. I've asked people at restaurants to move to a different table if I hear that kind of language around my kids.
Can't be a gentleman in front of a 10-year-old. I'd appreciate it if you went to a room, which he agreed. And I says, this is something I'm not going to tolerate.
Did you ask him to leave once the F-bomb came out?
On the second occasion, which Rich said was early in January, no, that was January 18th. I remember the date specifically. It was my birthday. My daughter and I were sitting around playing a board game, Battleship. Rich was really going off about something, let the F-bomb fly twice. I said, Rich, you're upset about something. I said, you know, it's not my place to ask you to go to my room. Either I'll leave the house with my daughter or can you go to your room? He went to his room. About 20 minutes later, the Weymouth police came by and served a restraining order to him from the last place he was living at. Apparently, there's an open case for assault and battery from his last girlfriend.
Okay.
And I told him, well, you know, you can't live here anymore. You've shown to me that you cannot refrain from swearing in front of my daughter, and I'm just not going to tolerate that.
It's not even the restraining order, the assault and battery, it's the F-bomb? All right, so now, all this happens January 18th, and you tell him he's got to go, so he goes. So why won't you return the other month?
We have a lease agreement that he has to give me 30 days notice, which he agreed to, and I told him he could stay till March 1st. And I didn't get any notice
All right,
from
his
him.
testimony is that you're telling him you got to go, and he's like, all right, if I go, will you pay me? And you say, oh, no, I won't. I'll only do that if I re-rent, and he goes anyway? Why wouldn't he just live it out and wait if he had in fact agreed?
I told him, I says, you can stay till March 1st. I says, you can stay till March 1st. That's when you're paid till. And if I rent the place
what
out,
he says is that you said to him that if he left early, you'd give him the whole amount.
only, Your Honor.
Yeah, he
only.
denies that. He denies that because then he says, I wouldn't have moved out.
I had made the agreement with him that
Right.
if I rented the place out, and I
Did
said,
he make that agreement with you?
Negative.
Okay. Because if he had said to you, I will only return the second half if I re-rent it in February, what would you have done?
I couldn't have afforded to at that point, so I would have wrote it out and saved money for the first and last moving into my new residence.
I believe that. That has the ring of truth to me. Okay?
Your Honor,
that has the ring of truth to me.
Welcome back to the People's Court. Harvey Levin here. Is it grounds to evict the plaintiff for repeatedly using the F-bomb in front of the defendant's 10-year-old daughter?
Absolutely not.
Really?
Well, it's freedom of speech. It's vulgar and wrong, but it's still not legal grounds to evict someone.
Interesting point.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I don't really agree with what they're doing, but it is what it is, and they can't really...
So you can just keep swearing in front of a kid when you rent a house from somebody and they're living in the house with their daughter.
No, I think it's kind of wrong because it is your 10-year-old daughter.
There's a butt coming,
But,
but you're allowed to do it?
well, it's freedom of speech, like she said.
Wow. Okay, a lot of constitutionalists here. That's very good. Going inside the courtroom.
Now, how did you turn a $325 case? I really have to invest with all you people. How did you turn a $325 case into a $1,050 case?
Okay.
Lost wages.
Yes.
Because you've had to.
And
You're the guy who sued.
Correct.
Because you want somebody to pay your salary for all the time it took you to sue?
all this like nonsense that he's going through, he is like rediverting and redirecting from the issue at hand. It's a sociopathic tendency, Your Honor. What he did just to avoid paying me the money is nuts. He put a restraining order against me, bogus affidavit.
Wait, he put a restraining order against you?
Just so I wouldn't amicably contact him again for making good on his debt to me.
What happened on the day of the permanent hearing? Was it granted or denied?
Yes, and the judge based it on his exact words where someone's lying and someone's credible.
You say here that right after he was served with the restraining order from his girlfriend that he said he would kill her or cut her throat. Did you call the police to tell them that?
I let them know that, yep.
No, I don't mean once you had a problem with him.
No.
I mean on the day he said that, did you call the police?
Nope. No, I didn't. For
Which
good
tells
reason.
me you're either a complete jerk because you don't care if he's going to kill her, or he didn't say it. Those are the only two options.
No, I actually feared him at that point because he seemed so.
You feared him?
Yep, such a psycho.
You didn't fear him so much. You didn't fear him so much. You shorted him the $325 in the car. You got a restraining order. You're not like a fraidy cat. You don't strike me as a fraidy cat. If he really said that, you should have called the police immediately.
I did file a report with them.
No, you only did that when it was in your interest, weeks later when you wanted to make sure he didn't contact you anymore and or he threatened you. When it bothered you is when you then supposedly told the police that. You never said it when it could have saved her life, potentially, if he had really said that. And that bothers me. All right, now talk to me about your counterclaim for emotional distress and extortion. All right.
Yeah, he said, I can stay here as long as I like, and I don't care if you see your daughter or not. He said, and I don't care if you don't get to see her, I'll stay here and make life miserable for you. And I did not want to give him that $325. At that point, I did tell him, I'll give you the $325. That's all I can give you, Rich. The guy had me over a barrel using my daughter's visitation to get the money. He could have stayed there for a month. No, that is the fact, Your Honor.
That didn't happen.
And he has
I know what happened. What happened is, in order to get the guy out, which is what you wanted and what you should want, and in order for him to leave, the incentive you have to give him is, if you leave a month early, I'll give you your month. Otherwise, the guy would just live out the month. I just don't believe you. I think the guy would live out the month. It's what makes sense. He doesn't have that kind of dough. And I think you owe him the other $325, but nothing else. And on your counterclaim against him, 0. I'm going to order you to pay the remaining $325. Good luck, folks.
Thanks, Your Honor. Thank you.
Well, here's the defendant coming out of here. He got $325. What's your feeling?
He got 325? I think the judge ruled in error. She didn't listen to much of the facts, and she seemed to have
She listened to the whole case.
She seemed to have judged, made
You
a
lost.
decision.
I mean,
That's right. Well, if you're
that's
asking
all.
me a question, you're going to let me answer or not. Seemed like
ahead.
she had already made her decision before then.
No, she didn't.
Well, seemed like that to me. She didn't even let me present my case. Bottom line, the judge didn't let me present my case. Didn't want to hear the facts. She had already made up her mind. Probably a late day for her. She needs to get back to where she's
I'm
going.
kind of sorry I asked. Step on in here. Satisfied how this comes out?
Very satisfied. The man shouldn't be worried about me. He should be worried about the women's husbands he's having illicit affairs with. You know, so I don't know why he's...
You guys done with each other now? You two?
100%.
All right. Over to Harvey.
You know what? Freedom of speech has limits. And I think in a lease situation, this is not going out in public and screaming whatever you want to scream, but in a lease situation, if there really is a lease and the plaintiff repeatedly uses that word in front of a 10-year-old girl, will not stop. I think there's something called quiet enjoyment, which means you have a right to reasonable peace and quiet. I think the defendant could then evict the plaintiff. And I think most judges would agree.